White Rocket Entertainment, podcast number 985.
That's a lot of podcasts.
Somebody had to say it. Hello, and welcome to the White Rocket Babylon 5 and Sci-Fi Review podcast. I am your host, Van Allen Plexico, joined by our co-host on many of our shows, Laura J Schroeder. Laura, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, good. I'm excited to talk about one of our favorite shows ever.
You and me both.
And before we do, I got to let people know, Andy will be joining us for this series, but he is unavailable tonight, and we're kind of on a deadline to get the show up. So Andy is on assignment. Will join us for episode 1. This is sort of episode 0, where we're just going to kind of look back at our recollections of this show before we start rewatching it, right? We didn't really do this with Babylon 5 because Andy and I didn't really know what we were doing 5 or 6 years ago when we started this program. But what we're going to do is, like, I think it would be neat to give our impressions and our memories before we rewatch it, right? And then it'll be interesting to kind of see how it plays out. Because one of the things Andy and I were noticing when we rewatched Babylon 5 week to week was that a lot of things were different than we remembered. And that was when we'd watched it more than once, and even some of them fairly recently. So it'll be good to kind of lay down a baseline here, and then we can kind of look back and go, it was different than, so we'll see. All right. So you have thoughts before we kick off?
Thoughts?
I wanted to say something. I want to make sure I get it.
I don't know. So,
Okay.
I guess before we start, you are on many of your podcasts, you showcase a variety of memorabilia depending on what it is. I have my one prized possession of Battlestar Galactica.
Ooh, what is that? What is it? Oh, is that the record album?
It's the album.
Yes.
And, look at the graphics. Gee, they match.
Let's zoom you in here. There.
And then the back was the first.
Oh yeah.
Was it? But yes, I have a very, very small collection of vinyl. Of course, I have nothing to play them on. This thing hasn't been played since I don't know when. But I also have Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi albums. But it's still, I still have it in.
Oh, there it is.
The sleeve.
It's just sickening to me because I had those and I don't have them anymore. I bought them all when they came out. I don't know if I had Star Wars. I may not have had Star Wars, but I definitely had Battlestar Galactica. I had 2001: A Space Odyssey, Superman 2, and The Empire Strikes Back. I had those for sure.
My dad has all the original Superman, the Christopher Reeve Superman, and all the Star Wars and all of that. So I had to have my own on a few of those things. But I listened to this so much. Because once the show was canceled, this was my only connection to it. Yeah. I would sit and I would draw or attempt. I cannot draw for the life of me, but I would try to copy this picture of Starbuck. But I had to show this because I know that we all love music and all of that, but this is my one prized possession from Battlestar Galactica.
It's a great album, great music. Stu Phillips, if I recall correctly.
So this was music performed by the Los Angeles Philharmonic Orchestra, composed and conducted by Stu Phillips.
The only Galactica 78 things I still own, I was just sitting here thinking, what do I have? The only ones I still have are, I've got some of the Richard Hatch novels. I used to have the Marvel comics. We're going to talk about that in a bit. I've got Apollo and Starbuck Funko Pops up on my showing off shelf with my absolute favorite, pops. And I've got the like 10 years ago, they put out a new super detailed version of the model kit of Galactica, and it's about 2.5 feet long.
Oh, wow.
And it's beautiful, and it's gotten bumped around a little bit. It sits on my bookcase upstairs, and it's gotten bumped around a little bit. And so I don't want to transport it. I would have it here showing it off, except that I'm afraid it would fall apart. I got to get some glue or cement, and kind of firm it back up, because it's in those big sections, and it's almost too heavy for its own structure. Kind of like what happened in the sequel show when the Galactica broke at the end, the spine broke or whatever. It's kind of had a similar fate. So I don't carry it around much, but that's all I have is that 70. I've got the new Galactica over there, a metal model of it that's really nice, but that's not the show that we're talking about here. So, and I think I got a little Viper somewhere, but other than that, that's about it. So, all right, well, let's get on into it then. So we're going to be talking about 1978-79 Galactica. This is a show that, by the way, that first aired September 17, 1978. That date is seared into my brain because I was so excited. I knew it was coming. What happened was I'd finally gotten to see Star Wars in late summer of 77 and had just gone bananas over Star Wars. And then sometime probably in the spring or summer of 78, when everybody's still Star Wars crazy, right? That phenomenon went on for a while. In the middle of that, about six to 9 months later, I remember seeing in the newspaper that there was this new TV show coming on ABC that was going to be like Star Wars. And I was like, oh, I got to see that. When's it coming on? And I remember my grandmother saying September 17th. And so I remember just walking around the house for weeks going September 17, 1978. I don't want to forget. Because you remember back then, if you didn't see something when it aired, you're out of luck.
Yeah, exactly.
No VCRs, no cable reruns, really. You're out of luck.
You would get summer reruns, like after the actual season. They would. But if you either saw it when it originally aired, and if there was something that interrupted it, some breaking news thing or the president, you just missed it. There was no going back.
No.
Yeah.
So. Well, that leads me into the other point, which is, and I'm sure you probably remember this too. I cursed Jimmy Carter for many years for daring to bring peace to the Middle East. I'm like, Mr. President, I don't care about peace in the Middle East. I'm concerned about peace among the 12 colonies and the Cylons. That's what really matters here. Come on. So,
when Star Wars came out, I actually saw Star Wars in 1977 in the theater. It was one of the few movies we actually went to as a family. And I remember not being very excited. In 1977, in the summer of 77, I was only 10 years old. And I was not that excited about it. The ads for it, the commercials on TV, trailer ads, it showed, Vader walking in and all of that. And so it just didn't look that exciting to me, but we all went and saw it, and then I fell in love. And what I remember when they announced this new show, Battlestar Galactica, and once again, I don't remember immediately being, oh my God, I've got to watch this, but it was leading up, I think it was probably the week leading up to the airing of the first episode, or the pilot, that everyone in school was talking about it, in 78. And so because of that, it was a little, I definitely, it's like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to have to watch this too. And of course, my father, who is a big Star Wars fan and wanted to watch it too. And then I was in love.
So that was the first I heard of it. There was an article in a newspaper my grandmother told me. And then the first thing I saw visually, and it tended to work out this way, right? Was an ad in a comic book, in a Marvel comic. And I think there's a twofold reason why. One, because Marvel got the license and they did a glossy, what they call the Marvel Super Special, kind of a treasury edition of their graphic novel adaptation of an earlier version of the script of the pilot. We'll get to that.
Okay.
But they also, movie and TV companies would put ads in comics early so that they'd be there on the stands for months, because comics would sit on the stands for 3 or 4 months. And so they wanted it there. But that usually was the first chance that many of us would get to see something was coming, was the ad in the comic book. And this was the ad for the Mattel toys, right? Mattel got the license to do the toys for Galactica. And I remember the ad had a Viper with the little red nose missile you could shoot, that I think killed a child. And it had I know the Boba Fett. I know, it's crazy. I think they banned them because the ones I got didn't shoot. They had they took the springs out. And the Cylon Raider. And I remember the first thing I did when I saw that ad in a comic book was I went and got some cardboard and I built my own Viper and my own Cylon Raider. And I had fun flying them around the bedroom, the living room, shooting at each other and everything, which is basically what a lot of the show was, right? I mean,
right. Yeah.
That was pretty much, yeah. And it was the same shot every episode too. Don't even get me started. We'll get to that. All right. So now back to Camp David. So September 17, 1978. It's so funny too, because this comes up in my American history class every semester, a Middle East history class too. And I have to stop everything and say, okay, so Jimmy Carter brought, Camp David, peace agreement, Egypt and Israel, and interrupted the first episode of Battlestar Galactica. And I remember, I think I had to go to bed and I never saw the ending of the 3-hour first episode. I don't know if I saw it the next summer in reruns, like you mentioned, or it might have been years later. I don't remember. Because, see, I read the comic book adaptation, so I knew how it ended, and I read the novel. Back then, you grabbed everything that you could. Yeah. I had the Glenn Larson paperback adaptation, and I had the Marvel Super Special, the glossy magazine adaptation. So I don't know if I actually saw the TV show the last hour, 45 minutes.
See, yeah, I don't necessarily remember anything being interrupted because I lived in Hawaii at the time.
Yeah.
And so the time difference, I can't remember if it made a difference, when all of that happened, because I would think with the whole Carter Camp David thing, that would have been aired at the same time, regardless of what time zone you're in.
It was probably in the afternoon for you then, and so by the time
I don't know that
have it probably
Battlestar Galactica was necessarily interrupted. That was a long time ago, and I honestly don't remember.
Yeah. Well, I just remember not knowing how it ended for a long time, other than through the comic book. So, and the novel. Wish I still had that novel too. It was cool. The novel had several differences, like the Cylons were aliens. They weren't robots. They were like lizards. And the Imperious, and what they kind of changed in the show was that they basically said the Imperious leader might have still been the lizard aliens. And that's why he looked more organic. And the actual Cylons had been replaced by mechanical creatures, which I think they just did for television so they could kill a bunch of them and it not be killing,
Well, I remember thinking that having the Cylons be what they are, the robotic it was reminiscent of the Stormtrooper armor.
Yeah.
You didn't see faces.
Right.
But they were obviously not, the Stormtroopers, there were people inside of there, whereas the Cylons were cybernetic.
Neither one of them could shoot worth a flip.
No.
All right. So you and I both first watched it September 17, 1978, right? And it aired through April 29th of 79. And 24 episodes, which I think is interesting because shows back in the 70s would have up to 24 episodes. By the 90s, it was down to like 20, 22, like Babylon 5 had 22. Now it's down to like 8 to 10, right?
Yeah.
It's just gotten crazy.
16 if you're lucky.
Yeah, depending on the show. But most things I watch, it's 8 to 10 now.
Yeah.
I mean, in a way, it's kind of good because they really only produced like the 8 to 10 best. They don't give you a whole lot of filler anymore. But on the other hand, you know, that's more of the content you want to a certain degree.
Yeah.
So it's a trade-off in a way, you know. You know, another thing that's interesting about Galactica, it was episodic like the original Star Trek in a way, but it also was kind of an early Babylon 5 where there was kind of an overarching story that did advance in fits and starts over the course of the season.
Right. The whole thing of trying to find Earth. That's that was the overall goal. The home world Caprica. It was destroyed.
Yeah.
And so they, took out all the survivors and they were trying to find the mythical 13th colony of Earth.
But I guess what I mean is even more than that, because like you could look at Space 1999 and say, well, they're trying to get back to Earth. So there's an overarching story there too. But the difference is every episode of the original Star Trek is they're on the 5-year mission and they go encounter some aliens or something. The original Space 1999, they're wanting to get back to Earth, but they encounter aliens and do some kind of, episodic thing. On this show, they did push the ball down the field in fits and starts a little bit. They encountered the Pegasus. They had the whole business with Terra, whatever that was, which we can talk about later. They had the last episode where they saw the moon landing video, right? So they actually did advance it a little bit compared to those other shows. There was a little, and I mean, if you don't watch the second half of the first season in order, it's very confusing. Which it
was a very groundbreaking show at the time. And I mean, a lot of people, I think at the time, thought it was a knockoff of Star Wars. And I'm sure the timing of it had a lot to do with the success of Star Wars. But it was, a show unto itself. I remember reading an article probably when I was around 7th, 8th grade, and talking about the set. And like they made a point to say that like all the lights on the set, all the little things, they were actually working and all that. I mean, this was, the set, the Bridge of the Galactica and all that. It was before we had any of the stuff we had. And I'm guessing they did not have the budget that Lucas had with Star Wars. So because this was a television show, it was something that had to be used every single week.
But it was the most expensive television show.
It was, yes.
$1 million an episode. I remember them saying. And I mean, they had to spend more than that on the first episode because that, building all those sets and the models, that first episode did a lot.
Yeah.
Compare that to the budget for like Apollo is stuck on the desert planet with the cowboy Cylon. That one cost $12. I mean, they had to move the money around probably. It's like, it's the same with Galactica. Andy and I talked about how, when Babylon 5 would be running low on money, there'd suddenly be an episode where they have a boxing match the entire episode or something. Whereas then they'd save up and do the shadow dancing or something, or something like that. So yeah, I get the feeling that, some episodes were like the Pegasus or the Gun on Ice Planet Zero, which obviously cost a lot of money. And some episodes are Starbuck is stuck on a planet in a prison, or Apollo is stuck on a planet or, by the way, let's, all right, well, I'm going to go in the right order here. I don't want to confuse things. Okay. So have we talked about what our immediate reaction was? I thought it was really, really cool.
It was the best thing ever. And oh my God, I love Starbuck. That was me. Straight up. I think probably from the moment he was first on screen, I was Team Starbuck.
I remember now. I remember in 5th grade, because this show was on when I was in 5th grade. And I remember sitting with my little girlfriend at the time at lunch talking about it. And I remember her saying, why does every show now have a blonde-headed guy and a black-headed guy? Because she's like, this show, Starsky and Hutch. I mean, she named like 4 or 5 shows that were on back then. I don't remember. I remember Starsky and Hutch. That's the only other one I remember. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of true, isn't it? Isn't that funny? And so,
well, it kind of continued because, Dukes of Hazzard. Let's see. I mean, and there's been different iterations.
True. Yeah.
Oh, I cannot. Why can't I think of the name of this show? We used to watch it. It had Gerald McCraney in it. They were 2 brothers. Of course, Gerald McCraney was bald, but the brother was blonde.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about. That's the Simon & Simon.
Yes. Yes.
Now, I never saw that because we didn't really get CBS, but I knew about it. Yeah. So we were both excited about it. We really liked it. Really excited. I never really had any issue with it being like Star Wars. I think the only thing I thought was like Star Wars, like you said, was the Cylons were kind of stormtrooper-ish. And then Muffet was kind of R2D2-ish.
Yeah.
But it was so different in the sense of this is a life or death. It involved Earth, which is something Star Wars doesn't have anything to do with Earth.
Right.
A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
There are those who believe that life here, and out there, far across the universe, with tribes of humans who were. Oh, I was reciting it earlier, but who could have been the forefathers of the ancient Egyptians, the Toltecs, or the Mayans. Some believe there may yet be brothers of man.
Yep, that's it. That's so good. I love that. Yeah, because we would hear Patrick McNee, right, who later played Count Ibley. He did it.
Yeah.
He was also he was in a lot of stuff. He was in the Avengers, the TV show Avengers, and he was
not the Marvel Avengers, the British. You're talking about the British Avengers with Emma Peel.
Steven Peel, yeah. And he was also like the sidekick in the James Bond movie A View to a Kill. And Roger Moore had a lot of fun in that one together, which was the best thing about that movie, honestly.
The other thing that I immediately noticed, because just looking at the helmet here reminds me, there was a lot of Egyptian reference to what the costumes looked like. And of course, I was enthralled with Egypt anything at the time.
Sure.
And for a long time.
True. Yeah, they try to tie it into like, oh, it's ancient. They had the same origins as Earth. And then when they, as we'll see later, when they got to the Lost Planet of the Gods, I can't think of the name now, but when they got there, it was pyramids. Right? Of course it was pyramids. Why would we think it was anything else? So I can't believe I can't remember the name of that planet, but it has been a while since I watched it. It showed up on Cobol, of course. Yeah, I had to check myself. Because the new Galactica did an episode called Cobal's Last Gleaming, which was pretty clever, I thought, too. So, all right. So, without going into episodic specifics, what was your favorite thing about the series? Was it Egyptian stuff? Was it Starbuck? What was your favorite thing?
So what I wrote down here, it was new and different, but it held my 11/12-year-old attention without being juvenile. So this was a grown-up show, but it appealed to a wide range. And so being a kid watching it, I wasn't bored with it, but yet it wasn't so juvenile that adults weren't into it. That is the one thing that I think that's my favorite thing about the show. Yeah, because there had been we'd had shows. So going back, we had Star Trek, Lost in Space, all these older shows. This was new sci-fi television for the era.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. It was one of the first sci-fi shows on television that really respected the audience's intelligence and maturity, along with the original Star Trek and a couple other
Right.
things. Yeah, and I would say probably in the big picture, it was for me. It was that it was really probably television's first military space opera in the full sense of the term. You know, it wasn't like an exploratory thing like Star Trek, and it wasn't like an exploratory slash, you know, oh no, here help us like Space 1999. This was like a military.
Yeah, there was a huge military influence. I mean, you had military shows on. I mean, military shows have been a huge thing in television for a long time. You know, we think of MASH and Baba Black Sheep Squadron, even going back to Hogan's Heroes, and you know, a lot of those older. So, and then of course you have Western, which Sheriff and all that, Lauren Green, Adama, you know, right. Bonanza. So, but yeah, this was, I think, I agree with you. This was the first, to have that big military presence.
So what disappointed you about this show, if anything?
The fact that it got canceled.
I was going to say, there's the big one, that it got canceled.
That was, my heart, I think that was probably my very first broken heart.
Yeah.
Was that it got canceled.
It's fair. Here was the thing. It ended this. I remember reading that it ended the year number 5 in the ratings. Okay, this is a time when 60 Minutes on CBS dominated the ratings. It was always number 1 on, I think, Sunday night. And so they put this on opposite it to try to dent their big ratings juggernaut. And it ended up number 5 for the year. But they said the problem is, for what they were paying for it, it had to be number 1. They couldn't justify $1 million an episode for a show that was not number 1. And so it got canceled.
It was the beginning of networks not giving shows enough time to actually get a hold. I would say number 5 at the end of the first year, that's a pretty good.
That's pretty good.
You know, it's hard. And new shows still dominate to this day. And 60 Minutes has been a driving force since its inception. So that is a hard spot to try and knock out.
And you said something really important there, not giving it enough time. The other thing that they didn't give enough time to, and this hurt it so bad, was they rushed it into production. This was a show that the creator, and I just said his name,
Glenn Larson.
Glenn Larson. All right. Glenn Larson was a Mormon. And this show was his take on the great trek of the Mormons to Utah.
Okay.
And it's just he used Greek mythology and Egyptian mythology instead of Mormon theology and everything. Okay. But see, he had it created in theory for years and nobody bought it. And so when they decided to finally make it because of Star Wars hit big, and ABC is like, we need a show that's like Star Wars. Oh, look, here's this proposal for a show called Adam's Ark. It was going to be called Adam's Ark. And they said, let's change it to Adama, and we'll name the show after the ship rather than, well, I guess it was going to be called Star Worlds, which is a little, please. And he said, okay. You want to be sued? We can do that. And he did.
Yeah.
So the first episode ended up being called Saga of a Star World, which makes no sense at all. But then they went Battlestar Galactica. So, so here was the problem. It sat on the shelf waiting for years and then suddenly got optioned. And ABC said, we need it tomorrow. You know, we need 24 episodes ready to go tomorrow. And especially the first half of the season, you can tell that the writers just went to the movie shelf, right? They didn't have a DVD shelf, but if they had, and they said, that one, in space. That one in space. Right? Okay. Ice Station Zebra in space. 12 o'clock high or whatever, the high noon in space. Every freaking story that's ever been done, cowboy western, Alistair McLean thriller in space. And that was the weak point, was the script. By the second half of the season, it got more about being itself. But by then I think it was too late. They squandered their viewership at the beginning by just not having interesting from the moment Baltar gets captured, the show gets absolutely fantastic, I think. But they waited until halfway through the series to do that.
And really, and it's interesting because there were, I mean, the cast that was attached to this throughout the season, some of the biggest names, Lauren Green was, a huge recognizable name. But you talked about the Pegasus. You've got Lloyd Bridges as was Kane, right? Is it Commander Kane?
Yeah.
And then his daughter, played by Anne Lockhart, which the Lockhart family is huge in all of that. So, and I mean, the first episode had Jane Seymour, she was just getting known, but she had recently come off of Live and Let Die.
That's so funny. Well, I mentioned that real quick. That's so funny because they actually said on the credits, I remember, introducing Jane Seymour.
Yeah.
Which is funny because this show aired in 78.
Yeah.
And Live and Let Die came out in 73.
Yeah.
So she's been around for 5 years when they introduced her on this show.
But I think Jane Seymour, she was not known to American television.
Right. That's what I know, but it's still
she's a British actress. Live and Let Die is a James Bond film, which, while very, very popular, it was theatrical, and she was brand spanking. I mean, I think she was only 19 years old when she did Live and Let Die.
Probably. Well, so let's transition into favorite character or characters, because that reminds me of, this is having Jane Seymour on there is just the first of many slights of Maren Jensen. I've had a bug in my butt about Maren Jensen on this show.
She was so underutilized.
How long has it been? Since 78. So this is 2026. So what, almost 40 years or more than that? Am I?
Well, let's see. Like I said, I was 11 when it came out. So 48 years.
I can't believe it's that I can't believe it's that old. Wow.
I know.
I can't believe it.
Gorgeous.
All right. So talk about favorite character or characters. You said Starbuck was your big one, right?
Starbuck, forever and always. Just ultimate favorite character. But I mean, I liked the ensemble. But I do remember, I really, really, really wanted Athena, played by Maren Jensen, to be so much bigger, because she was pretty, but she wasn't this bombshell. But she was pretty. She was an officer on the Galactica, but they relegated her to the typical female role in any science fiction, which Galaxy Quest parodies beautifully with Sigourney Weaver's character. It's just, she's just kind of set dressing, and they just never went anywhere with her.
Her only plots were she briefly got to be a pilot when all the pilots got sick, and that lasted 2-part episode. And she was in a love triangle with Cassiopeia and Starbuck, and that was it. And I used to say, not only did guest star Apollo's wife, Jane Seymour, not only did she upstage her for the first episode or two, but then the Princess Leia looking lady on the bridge that would say how close the Cylon fighters were, Rigel, she got more screen time than Athena did.
Yeah.
Honestly, she did.
Yeah, and the thing, so of course at 11 years old, I'm just getting interested in boys.
Sure.
Hence why I was massively in love with Starbuck. But as far as that love triangle, I never understood why Starbuck chose Cassiopeia over Athena. Because
Yeah.
Athena, I mean, the character of Cassiopeia, now, Laurette Spang, she did great with the role. And, she was, the blonde bombshell as opposed to the smart girl of Athena. But in my opinion, at 11 years old, Athena was the better choice because she was smart, she was independent, and
She probably intimidated Starbuck more.
Well, exactly. That's exactly it because he was a player. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm interested. I'm anxious to watch this with my now very mature brain as opposed to being 11. But yeah, even at 11, I'm like, why would he choose this? I don't know that I knew the word, but bimbo, this blonde bimbo over, this. And she and I mean, I know they started her character off. They never said it, but it was definitely implied that she was
Space
lady
hooker
of the evening. But
I like your term better than mine. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was trying to keep it family friendly. But they did actually up her, they did not make her the dim-witted blonde. She was working in medical, and she actually had a brain and all of that. So I guess you could retcon that, she did the work she did before because that was all she could get at the time. But they did make her character much more intelligent, or tried to. But I still never understood why Starbuck would go for her over Athena. And like you said, Starbuck was a player, and so he was happy to date. There was an episode he's like dating both, playing both back and forth. And,
yes.
And then Apollo. Well, Apollo was Athena's sister, so yeah.
Right. I got to tell this quick story because you made me think of it. It's very similar character. Inara on Serenity on Firefly. Same kind of character as Cassiopeia, probably higher class though.
Yes.
But I was at a panel at Dragon Con years ago with the whole Firefly cast, and
God, I'm so jealous.
I'm just gonna call them by their character names, so I don't sit here trying to remember names for an hour because I just can't remember names. But Inara and Book, Shepherd Book, Ron Glass. All right.
Yep.
And so Ron Glass is something like, "You were a space hooker," and she says, "I was a companion," and the crowd like, yeah. And when the crowd dies down, Ron Glass goes, "If it quacks like a duck." And the whole place just came apart. The whole place just came apart. It was so good.
Yeah, and that's a whole other thing. I find it interesting though because of her character and what she did. Though, like you said, higher class. It was regulated, and that having her on board actually brought respectability to Serenity, and allowed them to access other. Yeah,
she was by far the most prestigious character on that crew. Even over the Doctor.
She was making legit money, not doing crime. So, which I really definitely liked that whole juxtaposition there.
All right, so I didn't say my favorite character, and it's tough because, it's funny. I think that back then I would have said Apollo, and Richard Hatch.
It's Muffet, right?
Yeah, I liked Muffet.
I love Muffet.
There's a monkey in there, crazily enough. It was a monkey.
Chimpanzee. Ape, not a monkey.
Okay. That's right. But no, back then I would have said Apollo, and he was Richard Hatch coming off of a nice run on Streets of San Francisco where he replaced Michael Douglas for the last season or two of that show. And then he was doing this show. But back then it would have been Apollo, I think. But honestly, now as I look back and I'm going to see how this goes, I might find the most interesting character on this show to be Baltar.
I was going to say probably Baltar.
Because he has kind of a story arc If you look over and I'm just thinking back, but you look over the whole course. Originally, he was supposed to die at the end of the pilot, and in the comic book and the novel, the Cylons kill him. They say your usefulness is at an end now. We're going to take you out. They decided to keep John Colicos around because he's John Colicos, so he's awesome. And so they said, well, he's like, well, I have insight. I can think how they think. I can help you catch them and destroy them. But obviously, he doesn't really want to kill all the humans off, as evil as he is, because then he's going to get killed. So he spends the first half of the season helping the Cylons chase the Galactica down. But what does he do when they catch up to them? He surrenders, so he's with them. Once he kind of realizes they're not going to go down easy, and maybe he's on the wrong side because they're not going to kill him, maybe just lock him up for life. He really has two bad options. In fact, I guess the moral of Baltar's story is if you betray the entire human race, you kind of have bad options ahead of you.
Yeah.
But he will be interesting. He was certainly one of the most interesting characters on the new Galactica. They did some cool with that great I can't think of his name either, but the great actor that played him in the new version.
Oh, James Callis.
Callis, who's recently shown up on Slow Horses as a British government official who's just as pompous as ever.
And it's so funny because James Callis played the gay best friend in the friend group in Bridget Jones' Diary.
Interesting. All right. So what was your favorite episode, just kind of thinking back from memory?
So I don't know, because I have not watched this since it aired in 1978. I do not remember episodes. So I don't know which was my favorite episode. So I'll be, this whole rewatch is almost going to be like watching it for the first time.
Okay.
Even though I know there will be things that I remember, and there are things, I remember flashes and stuff like that. But I really don't remember a lot.
I remember the whole series pretty well, but I got it on DVD around 2002 and watched the whole thing through, and it's popped up here and there on cable, so I've watched it. I think that while I think the second half of the season is stronger overall, and I do like the Gun on Ice Planet Zero because it's very much like an Alistair MacLean, Ice Station Zebra, the Guns of Navarone mashup, which I think is cool. So that one's right up there. But I think my favorite one is the Pegasus episode, the Living Legend, where Kane shows up, and because I remember as a kid when that episode aired, and we didn't know, we didn't know what was happening. There were no previews.
That I do remember, because all of a sudden there's another what looked like Galactica. Yeah. That I do remember, just like, what? Where did they come from? Where have they been?
Yes. And ironically enough, by far the best episode to me of the new Battlestar Galactica is the one that first brings the Pegasus back too.
You do realize I've only seen a handful of the new Battlestar Galactica episodes.
Oh, well, we'll do that one down the road.
So when we do get to that, I will be like Andy with SGU. I will be pretty much seeing it. Like I said, there's been a few episodes I have seen, but they were just random. So I will be the first time viewer.
The thing about, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole too far, but the thing about the new one for me is there's about 12 to 15 episodes of the 2004 Battlestar Galactica that are great, that are among the best things ever done on TV. The problem is those 12 are scattered out over like 70 episodes. And the thought of rewatching all 70
little daunting there.
Break out in a cold sweat, because like, I don't know if I want to spend that much of my remaining life, rewatching episodes that were not that great the first time just to get to the ones that are so good. I honestly, when the three of us do the new Battlestar Galactica, I may make a rule that I get to curate the list of episodes, and we're only watching a handful of episodes, and we'll get it done in like 3 months, because I do not want to sit through that entire series again, honestly.
So hopefully you will curate those episodes before we even start, so then I can keep going in between before we get to so I could actually have the whole story and background.
Yeah.
Because I don't know that I could watch something and not have seen like the previous, 10 episodes.
And it is much more continuity than the original show. I've got the new show every season on DVD, and some of the boxes I've never even taken out of the shrink wrap.
Oh, wow.
The DVDs have maybe even rotted in the box for all I know. I mean, they may not even work. All right. That's true of several shows, though, I have on DVD. All right. So, yeah, I think probably my favorite was Living Legend Part 1 and 2. There were a lot of 2-part episodes in this show, which was cool because it had a big epic scale, and so it gave you 2 hours, basically, including commercials, to get a whole story in. So I kind of like that about it. So no episode really stands out in your memory. I guess that's, for me, that it's the Gun on Ice Planet Zero, and the Living Legend. And then, I mean, the last episode, Hand of God, with the gold Cylon Centurion, and they attack, they go on offense for once. That really stood out as a very different, I remember Commander Adama saying, "I'm tired of running," and then they turn around and attack, and you're like, holy crap.
I don't know if I remember that episode, and I don't know if I actually got to see the ending, because in March of 1979, we moved from the island of Oahu back to the continental U.S. My dad's 3-year tour at Schofield Barracks ended, so we were headed back to the new post in Leavenworth, Kansas. So during March, we left in March, and we got to California, and we had to wait for the car to get there. And I know we spent some time with friends, and then we kind of took the scenic route before, he had to get to his posting. So I remember watching an episode at friends that we stayed with in Idaho one night, because it's like we hadn't really had a whole lot of TV, but I don't know if that was the last episode or if I actually even got to see the last episode. Because like you said, back then you watched it when it aired, or you didn't get to watch it. So it'll be interesting going through these to see how much I actually remember.
I'm trying to, it's funny. I was just complaining about this on our football show the other day, that I like to find pictures that I can use in the background here, but StreamYard doesn't like these WEBP files, and that's like what everything, how everything on the internet picture wise used to be JPEGs, and now it's all these WEBP. I don't even know what that is, but StreamYard does not like it, and so half the pictures out there now I either can't use, or I have to go and find like a or I have to convert it myself.
Convert it to a JPEG, yeah.
Oh, it's such a pain. Right now I'm just trying to find a nice picture of the Galactica, because I haven't put that up. Oh, okay, here's one. Excuse me. So before we wrap up, last couple of questions for you and for me. But first, let me put the there we go. Hold on. Okay, so let's see. Last couple of things here before we wrap up. So we talked about there's not really anything that stands out in your memory you're looking forward to, and I said what I did. So you haven't really watched this series since the original airing?
No.
Okay, and I have a few
48.
Did you ever read any of the novels or comic books?
No, I did not. I was not a comic book person. I didn't read them. My dad didn't. So I didn't grow up with, I knew they existed. That just wasn't what I did. And the novels, I mean, at that age, I didn't really get interested in like reading until 6th grade, so 11, 12. But I probably didn't even know that they existed.
Well, I read the original book, and I remember they put out an adaptation of The Living Legend as a paperback, and I read that. Marvel published this glossy super special, as I said, of the original pilot episode, 3 hour, which was pretty cool. And I had that, and then they did a monthly comic book series, and I read that, and it wasn't great. But in hindsight, it wasn't that bad, honestly. I kind of want to go back and find it. Now, about 10 or 15 years ago, one of the smaller comics companies, not Marvel or DC, got the license, and they did a couple of series of comics on it. But I didn't like the art. It was back in like the late 90s, early 2000s, and the art was, it was that sort of image art, that sort of Rob Liefeld kind of art from the 90s that was really big, and I hated it. So I didn't really read it. But I have in the last 10 years read a couple of Richard Hatch's continuation novels, because Richard Hatch in his later years got really interested in bringing this property back. And he did a whole trailer that they showed at Dragon Con a couple of years where he wanted to bring Galactica back, where he would be the commander now. It's the next generation,
As Apollo?
Yeah, like Commander Apollo running the Galactica and bringing everything back. And he was trying to get that picked up. And then right in the middle of that is when Ronald A. Moore got the rights. And so he got to give us the 2004 Galactica instead of Richard Hatch. And it worked out because it was a great show. That's why Richard Hatch ended up appearing on the 2004 Galactica, is kind of like throwing him a bone because they didn't use his proposal. They just rebooted the entire show rather than doing it as a continuation. I think that was the thing, was that Richard Hatch wanted to do a continuation. And they're like, nobody remembers it but the diehard fans, and that's not enough. So they just want to completely reboot the whole thing, and so they used him as Tom Zarek as a supporting character on there, who was interesting. But Hatch did do several novels continuing the story, and they're not terrible. They are what they are, just continuation novels. So I've got a couple of them over on the shelf there. They're not terrible. I was going to ask you, I have a couple more questions that you did not see and Andy did not see. Does Galactica 1980 count in your head canon, or does it not count?
It does count. And I was on a panel at Dragon Con last year for Galactica 1980. And when they announced it, I'm like, oh my God, I've got to do this. And people are like, Galactica, because Galactica 1980 is like the redheaded stepchild. There were things that I was excited about it because I was 12 when it came out. And when they announced it, I was just excited that my beloved show was going to have something coming back. So it got a little weird. There was stuff that just kind of went off the rails. And of course we didn't get a second season, which probably was good. There were some things I thought was funny, but the main reason why it does live in my headcanon is because of the final episode in 1980, which brought Starbuck back. And it was basically the end of his story. And it's funny because that episode, I mean, it was hands down the best episode of that short-lived series. And but when I was watching Star Trek Next Generation, there is one of my favorite episodes in Next Generation is titled I, Borg. And that's when we meet the character of Hugh, who Geordi becomes friends with, who is a Borg that instead of saying we as a collective, he becomes I. But that whole interaction between Geordi and the Borg, to me, harkened back to that last episode in Galactica 1980 between Starbuck and the Cylon.
Okay. Yeah. I know there were a couple of things. The problem with that show was, one, they didn't have any money. That was the whole
They
point.
didn't have any money, and
That
they
was the whole point of
were
the show.
the studios dictated what they wanted.
Yeah. Young
And
adult.
you know,
It was dumbed down.
yep.
Dumb
And then they brought in all these
Right.
kids. They brought the kids
Right.
down, and it was just.
And what I mean about that was, the point was the money. Was they wanted to say, they were saying the show got top 5 ratings. So if we could, they're like, if we could do a Battlestar Galactica that could be number 5 in the ratings, but didn't cost $1 million an episode, that would be a success. The problem is, if you don't spend $1 million on it, then it's not going to be number 5 in the ratings.
Yeah.
Right? So it was like number 75, and down it went. So,
though it would not break my heart if most of that was just like redone. If they wanted to get to that point, because that's they're suddenly they're at Earth, but Adama's still there as commander of the Galactica, but it's like, what happened to Apollo? Well, we found out what happened to Starbuck, but it's just like all of these characters. They did have Boomer in one episode.
Oh, I love Boomer. Everybody loves Boomer.
But kind of in the role I think that Colonel Ty had been, because he had of course gone up the rank, but it just there was just it could have been so much more than it was.
Yeah, I think getting to Earth and it being 1980 Earth was just, I mean, I had fantasized during the original Galactica's run, 78, 79. I was imagining they'd get to Earth and it would be like the Star Trek Earth, and there'd be like a whole United Federation of Planet fleet that go out and just whoop Cylon butt. And they get here and it's 1980, and I'm just like, And I think that's kind of what Adama's reaction was, like, they got cars and stuff. This is no good.
What is
Do you know the
this?
story of? Did you guys talk about the story of why Adama was still the commander in Galactica 1980?
I don't think we touched on that.
Okay, I can tell you the story. What happened was they were going to change the entire cast. That's why they brought on Kent McCord and the other guy. They're going to change everybody.
He was Barry Van Dyke. That's his name.
Yeah.
And they were, but do you know why they were cast?
No.
Because they resembled Richard Hatch and Dirk Benedict.
Yeah. Another blonde and brunette.
Yep.
All right. So word got to Lauren Green that they were bringing the show back. And he called up the producers and said, "This is awesome. When do I show up?" And they said they did not have the heart to tell him no.
Who would tell Lauren Green no? The man's a legend.
They're like, "Oh, he wants to be on it. Well, I guess we'll have to write him in then, put him in." And, I don't know who the commander was going to be, but it wasn't going to be him. Maybe it was going to be Boomer. That would have been cool.
I don't know. But
maybe it was going to be Athena. She finally had something to do. She's the commander of the Galactica.
Yeah.
That would have been awesome.
Yes, but even in 1980, that would have been a stretch.
Yeah.
Fortunately. Yeah. I mean, we didn't get a female captain of anything until Star Trek Voyager.
Yeah. Well, let me just tell you, Admiral Kane on the new Galactica. Oh, boy. Lloyd Bridges any day over that psychopath. But anyway, she did a great job. She did great. The actress does an amazing job with Admiral Kane. But sweet Georgia Brown, Admiral Kane, if you haven't seen it, you haven't seen the Pegasus. Oh my gosh. All right. We'll get to that. Well, no spoilers. All right. So what are you most looking forward to rewatching? Just seeing the whole thing again for the first time?
I think it's the nostalgia of something that forever lives in my heart, because what I have not talked about, when we moved back to Kansas and I started 7th grade, and I met this person who became my best friend through 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, actually until we were adults. I had already moved back to St. Louis, but we were so close. And she, like me, was a fan of Star Wars and Battlestar Galactica. and we talked at length about Battlestar Galactica, and it was really very convenient because she was an Apollo fan, whereas I was a Starbuck fan. And this was like, I knew nothing about role-playing games or anything like that, but we created, so we went to Catholic school, but we created our own identities within Battlestar Galactica. So she was a captain, I was lieutenant, Apollo Starbuck. We would, because, at that age, you can't curse. So we said frack a lot, frack and Felgercarb. And I mean, I remember in one of my jackets and stuff, we had made, construction paper cubits, which was the money.
The money, right.
So yeah, we basically, in our own little world lived Battlestar Galactica.
Nice.
So it is so much attached to my childhood and preteen years that what I'm most looking forward to is revisiting that, revisiting the nostalgia, but then also looking at it with a different brain, literally. And then getting to share it with you and Andy, because you guys are fans too. So it's, there's just a whole lot of win in this whole thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to.
Well, I'm trying to say, what I'm looking forward to is exactly what Andy and I discovered watching Babylon 5 the last 5 years, and then coming on here and talking about it, which is that we brought out stuff that we had never noticed before. And I'm just hoping, because I'm hoping that Galactica can stand up to that level of scrutiny, because Babylon 5, the folks that have been with us from the beginning can testify that Andy and I approached it always with love, but there were some things we found that we're like, ooh, and there were things that we found that we're like, whoa, there's more levels here than we ever realized before. And so it kind of went good and bad. We saw a broader spectrum to Babylon 5 than we had just watching it for entertainment. Mm-hmm. And I'm really curious to see if that happens with Galactica, if there's enough there's enough depth that we can learn new things and see there were things that we missed before, but also take them to task on the things that they do that make us mad, like using the exact same special effects shot over and over and over and over.
The 3 Cylons.
Yes. Right.
But they used that same stuff in Galactica 1982. There was a lot. The Viper, you get that in every episode, and
that's right.
So
the other show back then that did that a lot was the really, really good animated Flash Gordon on NBC. About the same time, they put that show out to kind of promote the upcoming movie. And the animated show on NBC Saturday mornings was so much better than the terrible.
Oh, come on. The movie was so much fun.
The movie had a great soundtrack.
Oh, it's because it was Queen.
And yes, and it had Max von Sydow, which is untouchable. Mm-hmm. Other than that, horrible. But
Flash.
I know. Not going to go down that rabbit hole either. All right. Now, my last question, and this ties into what we were just talking about, and this is going to wrap us up. We're coming in just over an hour. Not too bad. What do you suspect you might see differently now than you saw before when you watch it?
This is probably colored by things that I have learned about the show over the years. You mentioned earlier about Glenn Larson being Mormon, and so this whole show there's a heavy religious undertone there that that just completely was lost on me as a kid. So I do expect to be able to see that in rewatching it as an adult and knowing that it existed there.
And by the way, what does Starbuck immediately want to do? Have 2 women. Oh no! I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry
about that, but you're right. I mean, but it's not like he wanted to marry them both. He just wanted to have fun.
Well,
And that's
right.
a whole other. So, I mean, but
fair.
then there's things like that it's just like,
Oh gosh.
you know, trying to see like what they present within the realm of the late 70s and how, you know, what if did they actually get away with stuff that other shows didn't? Did they, you know, and seeing, you know, I'm interested to see like the depth that, you know, how deep did it actually go? Was it how cerebral it was? Because so many of our sci-fi shows now, especially we've been talking about on SGU, on how much more cerebral and dark it is. You know, what was you know, with this, you know, was there something more than just flash and pew pew pew?
Yes. I agree. I think that I'm going to be paying particular attention to Baltar because I think they realized that by sticking him on a base star and having him chase the Galactica around, he couldn't do anything. He's just sitting there, destroy the Galactica. Yeah, and this boy, yeah, well, and bicker with Lucifer.
Yeah,
they only put Lucifer on there to give him something to do, somebody to talk to. You could just see that when they decided to keep him around, they're like, well, is he just going to talk to these robots every episode? That'll be boring. So they created a talking, you know, Roddy McDowell voiced character. Hello, Count Baltar. So Lucifer's interesting, Baltar's interesting, but they really needed more than just. And that begs the question. I don't know if we ever saw this, or did we? Maybe we did. When Baltar surrenders, is Lucifer running the Cylon fleet?
Yeah. I want to say
I'm so there for that.
You know, I talked about, you know, I'm like remembering flashes, and I want to say there's a shot of Lucifer in Baltar's chair. Yes, yeah. I think so.
That lazy boy, the space lazy boy up there on the pedestal. Heck yeah, man! I'm all for that. I'm team Lucifer. I think at this point. Yeah, I'm curious about that, and I'm curious to see if maybe if Athena ever really got to do anything.
Did she get to do anything other than just be dressing on the?
She was, on the set. She was a pilot, I know, and that's
bridge.
Yeah,
because I mean, because Cassiopeia had much more to do than
a lot more,
even without Starbuck.
Like I said, Rigel was on screen more than Athena by like the 4th episode. And all she did was sit there in front of the little Cylon base stars are closing, Commander. And she's on screen more than Athena.
Yeah.
So all right. Any final thoughts about this show before we get into it and get out of it?
I'm just extremely excited to be going down this road. And with you and Andy, so
yes, I am too. All right, so just a programming note for folks. When we do the first episode, we'll give Andy a chance to answer a few of these questions if he has any he wants to talk about, and then we're going to review the Saga of a Star World, possibly the worst title of any episode. Even the Young Lords isn't as bad as this, but it's just basically they should just entitle this episode, the first episode, "Dear George Lucas, please sue us." And he said, "Okay, sure, I'm happy to
hold my beer."
Yes, my ambrosia. Let's see. Pull that one out of my rear end. So, all right. So we're programming note. What I was going to say is we're going to get into that coming up. Jim and I are still doing Space 1999, so expect more episodes covering that. As we come up with it, Andy and I kind of ran out of things immediately at our fingertips to review for Babylon 5, but we're not completely done. So we're still going to do a couple of the stories. There's other books, trilogies and stuff. So we're not completely done with Babylon 5. We've just kind of covered all the major stuff now. And then And we have more Stargate Universe coming up because we're into season 2 now. So I'm looking forward to buzzing through the rest of season 2. We've been having a good time with that. All right. Well, I think that the Battlestar is going to hit light speed and get on out of here for another episode, our first episode. But we will see you guys down the road. Laura, thank you for joining me. We'll see you later.
Bye.